Welcome to our episode of Happier at Lap of Love, where we get to dive into what it's like being a Lap of Love veterinarian and sit and chat with my colleagues here at Lap of Love to get to know them better. With us today, we have Dr. Jodie, who is with us up in Charlotte, North Carolina. Dr. Jodie, thank you so much for joining us. We're super excited to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me, Leanne.
Yes, absolutely. I'm curious. So you've been in with Lap of Love now for how long?
About a year and a half.
Have you noticed like any differences from when you began to even now? Like, what has your experience been like working with Lap of Love in that duration?
So I've really loved what I've done. It's been so refreshing to just, not to say like it's Groundhog's Day, I do the same thing every day, but you're doing the same thing in very different circumstances. So getting to know the families and the patients, going from, a giant pile of treats to a dog falling asleep with a cookie in their mouth. My favorite was an entire pumpkin pie. And to
That's
be
awesome.
there in a very relaxed atmosphere, in a sense of I'm not rushing to get to the next appointment. I'm not having clients have to rush because the exam room is going to be taken up by somebody else. I can just be present and in the moment with those families. And as I've evolved in my career, I've kind of changed my spiel, my routine a little bit. And I found that families, sometimes we're laughing more than we're crying. Sometimes they're very emotional, or sometimes they just need silence, and that's okay. So I've adapted my communication style depending on the families, and that's definitely evolved, over the course of the past year and a half.
That's incredible. I don't know about you. I found when I joined with Lap of Love, the training that we had kind of to begin our path, I found that to be very, very helpful because I think for most of us, at least, I can't speak for you, but I had not performed any in-home euthanasias before coming to work with Lap of Love. Had you?
I've actually done one for a colleague.
Okay.
So I worked emergency medicine full time before Lap of Love, and the pace is extremely different. So at 10 a.m., I've already seen 6 ER cases. I've talked to 10, ICU clients, and I'm burnt out. And I look at the clock. I'm like, it's only 10 a.m. Are you kidding me? I'm Lap of Love by 10 a.m. I've walked the dogs. I've had breakfast, and I'm getting ready to start my day. So a little bit of a difference for sure.
Yes.
But as far as the training goes, I think they prepare you for kind of what to expect as far as, how should we calculate our drugs? How should we, set up our car? How should we, plan our day? What they don't prepare you for is kind of those spontaneous moments that to me are kind of the best. So for example, if a dog falls asleep under a pool table and I'm like, oh, I've never done this before, but I guess I'm crawling under a pool table today. And for me, being in the field, you just gotta have your stuff prepared and know that it's okay to have those changes. It's still a lot less stressful than being in the emergency clinic.
Very different. Oh, hello. I'm so sorry. No, that's okay. She wants to be the star and I can't blame her. She is a beauty. So, I love it.
The other unexpected thing you get is you get to spend much more time with your fur babies, or if you have human babies.
Right.
If you don't have an appointment, then you're not obligated to a family's home. Maybe you're home doing some inventory or getting ready for the next day, or, driving to a clinic and buying and, bringing them some nice treats and making their day. So the days to me aren't as stressful as what I've experienced in the past. And the training, I don't think they prepare you for the downtime so much. It's like, what do I do in my free time? My house cleaner, my get more love and attention. That's been an unexpected bonus that I just absolutely love. So
that's awesome. I love. Okay, so you said you had worked in an ER setting, and I know you, from my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, did you have oncology experience under your belt as well prior to Lap of Love?
Yeah. So I had a full meandering journey. So I started, I went to undergrad at NC State. I went to college. And so I did a medical oncology internship. I moved up to Boston. I went to Minnesota for my radiation oncology residency. I love connecting with families in a very vulnerable setting. And so it was hard being a radiation oncology resident locked in a basement with no windows. And the only clients I saw were, I didn't even see them to do consults. They were going through the different service and then coming to me for treatment. the patients I would see were already under anesthesia for me to position them. And so I made a career change to go into emergency medicine, where I would be up close and personal with families all the time. And that was fantastic for a month. And then COVID hit. And then I think my clinical practice aged about 5 years in the matter of one.
Yes. Yeah. I know COVID hit us all a little differently, but the ER setting, I know it must have been tough.
It was a year and a half of, decreased staff, increased case volume. And I felt like I was doing a disservice to my families because I couldn't give them the time and attention that they deserved, especially for those big conversations.
Were you familiar with, how did you become familiar with the lap of love?
So actually a mentor of mine had used lap of love in her home in New Jersey for her service dog, who I had known for, I can't remember if he was 12 or 13 when he passed, but I knew him for most of his life, at least a decade of his life. And I was there in those moments. And it was such a peaceful transition for Wyatt because he was surrounded by love. He hadn't eaten in like a week, and we gave him literally all the food that had been leftovers that we were hoping he would eat, and he ate it all in one shot. My mentor had said to me, "Are you sure we're doing the best thing for him?" And I looked at Wyatt and I saw in his eyes and I saw how he was breathing, his gum color, and I knew that he didn't want to be hungry up there, but he was ready to transition. And that was like a personal experience as a client. And then being able to do the in-home euthanasia for my colleague, for Megan. And she's like, "You're really good at this." And I'm like, I didn't think I would be good at this, but it's a gift to be able to go into a home. It's an honor to go into a home and let somebody help them help their loved one in a very sensitive and delicate time. And for me, not that I'm not emotional, but I can take that emotion and turn it into love and compassion, but not go home and take it as a burnout. In the ER, I was burnt out because owners couldn't afford care, because we didn't have enough staff, we weren't efficient. And there were so many barriers to being able to just being a doctor, to be able to serve my families and my patients. And with Lap of Love, I don't say I'm just a doctor, but like that's really all I have to do is just be that.
You're not wearing 100 different hats.
I'm not answering the phones. I'm not scheduling the appointments. I'm not taking radiographs, drawing blood, and doing all the things that we need to do that if we had a really strong team that we could all do together. At Lap of Love, we do have a really strong team, but they're so strong that I literally just have to show up, do my job, and go home. And that's so refreshing.
It's nice to be able to kind of start and stop and not have just a continuous thing, a worry hanging over your head about, oh, how's that patient doing? Like, I'm going to see them in the next 6 hours after I return to my ER shift type scenario. Yeah, I remember that life as well. Yes, and it's tough. Goodness. So, okay, when you applied to Lap of Love, I guess, had you heard about like just a different quality of life, or I guess what prompted you to want to make a transition to this space specifically?
Thought, well, I love oncology, I love emergency and end of life care. And so I kind of said, okay, oncology, emergency, the next step is hospice and euthanasia. Like it's a natural progression.
Right.
So I figured, I can't foresee myself having a GP future just because that's not my goals as a veterinarian. And there are so many amazing GPs in my area that I didn't even know if Charlotte would hire another Lap of Love vet. And when I spoke to Dr. Mary, I think what sealed the deal is she had shared with me a story where she was in a junkyard with a Rottweiler who was experiencing extreme pain. And her 6-foot-tall self had crawled under a boulder to be able to help this family. And all I could think was, this is so cool. That as somebody who's, who is able to be athletic, who is able to, who enjoys that kind of uptime and downtime and transition between appointments, who enjoys a good challenge, even if it's a physical challenge, I'm totally here for it. And I'm thinking, well, maybe I couldn't lift that boulder off of that dog, but I would be able to alleviate its pain and come up with some way to like MacGyver myself in there and figure it out. And I'm like, I want to be Dr. Mary when I grow up. So
who doesn't? We have some pretty incredible women who are veterinarians, our founders, and like they really have created who Lap of Love is today. But I don't know about for you. When I joined with Lap of Love, one thing that kind of stuck out to me was that it was very clear what our mission and values were. And I don't know if you remember having like a discussion surrounding that at all when you explored or even when you went through training, but for me that was something that was just like, oh, like this is made to be very important. And like every decision we make, whether it's involved in patient care or even with our schedules or business decisions, whatever, it goes back to those values and that mission, which I found to be really refreshing because it makes your life a little easier when you know what you're working toward. Right?
Yeah, so one of my loves is volunteerism and volunteering for different nonprofits, whether it's, I've worked for the Conservative Center helping lions and tigers, Merlin's Kids, where I was working with service dogs. Even though this is a company that is a business, it feels like a nonprofit because it is mission driven. And where the mission is really, and we call it the Tao of Lap of Love. And I think it really that our mission to serve our families and our patients really supersedes any need to make a profit, to, serve a number. And like, yes, it's great when I can say, I saw 50 appointments this month. That's wonderful. But guess who doesn't care? I don't care. My goal is how can I serve my families to the best of my ability and to give them what they need in those moments. So if a client needs 2 hours to come to terms with the fact that it is their baby's time to transition, and they need that time and space to go between, us having like a mini consult prior to doing the actual flow of the appointment and then saying goodbye to their loved one afterwards, and they need that time and that space, we can give them that time and space without having to say, well, we need to rush because we need to get to the next one, because the next one is going to need that time and space too. And they're going to understand. And if I'm at the top of the hour or the bottom of the hour of the quoted hour of a window of arrival, all that means is they get that much more time with their dog or cat or lizard or whomever. Any other animal aside horses, which is also very good because I don't have to worry about euthanizing horses.
Yes. Yes. I'm glad we get to kind of help. They ask us when we're going through, and you probably remember this conversation, what species are you comfortable with outside of dogs and cats? And, they respect that, which is really nice because I know I would not be the best doctor to come in and help a bird when the family was ready to say goodbye. And so I took some confidence in knowing, okay, like I'm not going to have a species that I haven't had experience working with or comfort level with scheduled for me, right? It's going to be focused in on, okay, this is what I know I'm to be good at, right? And this is where I can excel and help do the most good, right? As far as like within this year and a half that you've been with Lap of Love, do you feel like your life has changed, like comparatively to before you began working with Lap of Love? Like, I guess anything that you've noticed both from the work setting or personal setting, even like, how is it different?
So from a professional setting, I feel a lot less burned out. I still have some of myself at the end of the day. And what's interesting is the reason I became a vet in the first place, I was actually about 8 years old. We euthanized our family dog and I saw the peace and humanity in it. And then when I was about 15 or so, I became a veterinary assistant. And I told myself, you're not going to be that person just goes home and works and comes home and works. Like you don't want to do that with your life. And so I've been very grateful that with Lap of Love, I can go home at sometime between 4 to 6 p.m. 6 p.m. is our after hours appointment. So for anybody in ERGP, you're probably laughing at that. Our after hours is 6 p.m. So the latest I'm going to have my day is 7 p.m. And sure, there's some, some administrative tasks and things that, are involved, but in the home setting where I can let my dogs out, they can eat. I don't have to worry about, anything of leaving them alone too long, especially because they're old and they're seniors. Having myself at the end of the day and not feeling so physically, mentally, or emotionally burnt out that I can't go to work the next day. I've been a lot less anxious. So,
good.
Anxiety standpoint, most people, I think vet med people are type A plus. And so I need to do good. I need to do great. I need to do excellent. And then the next day comes along and you're like, I don't even know if I'm recovered from yesterday. And it's very rare that I have 3 to 4 Lap of Love days in a row that I actually feel so like I need a day. Like I'm like, I can keep going if I need to, And with ER, I didn't feel that. I could have 1 ER shift. My shortest ER shift is still longer than my longest Lap of Love shift, physically, mentally, and emotionally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I felt the same way too. It was very hard for me to recover from my working days. And even so when I worked with Apple Love in Houston, I was on the calendar 5 days a week, which sounds like a lot because I would say, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, if you've encountered something different, but I feel like our industry standard more so in a brick and mortar setting is people are usually 3 or 4 days a week nowadays. Yeah. So it was funny, like 5 days a week sounds a lot, but I just remember thinking to myself, I can't believe that like this is the schedule I have. I have so much more energy even at the end of my work day for myself and my family. And like those things I used to not be able to do, I was able to do again. Like I was able to read for enjoyment or go for a run when I wanted to, or like cook for myself again. So it's like those simple things though, they make such a big difference.
And this is a job that has not only surpassed the 1 year mark, but I can see myself until I'm too physically old to do this. Like if I'm like in a wheelchair, I will wheel myself to an appointment. Like I will, but maybe not. But one of the things I really love is that like just the culture of the company has been so kind and loving and supportive in every aspect of things, whether it's your physical or your mental or your logistical part of your day. Your team is there to support you, even though you feel like you're an island going to these appointments.
The people who work with Lap of Love, I think it attracts like-minded individuals. And when you said like everyone is so kind, I think like attracts like, right? So the people who, you know, want to work with Lap of Love, they identify as kind. They in their heart, they know that they have these same values and kind of characteristics about them and want to be in an environment in which they can demonstrate it, right? Like, why would you not want to be in an environment in which you can kind of fulfill those parts of you that you want to be? So
absolutely.
Anyway.
Drama, which I love. Like you think a company that was founded by women, full of lots of women, not to be sexist.
There's a lot of that.
And that in general, like, you know, there's always that, like, that challenge of working in an office where you feel that sense of, I don't know what it is. Like, there's no gossip, there's no drama. If someone hears something about, you know, about a colleague, like, let's say they have lost a loved one or something, like we're sending flowers, we're doing something to support them. And we have a Facebook group. And one of the things I very much value is if some doctor posts something like, hey, I need help with the sedation protocol, or I have a behavioral euthanasia that I'm really nervous about coming up. Like, doctors will jump on and be like, you got this, or how can we help you? Or here's the protocol that I used, and here are some tips. And we genuinely want to help each other. There's no sabotage, there's no drama, there's no gossip, there's no stress.
Yeah, it helps. It helps when you have time. I think I feel like a much better human being since working with Lap of Love. So
absolutely. And I think the families that we serve, if there is a very emotional appointment, you have that time between appointments to, turn over your car, to get your next drugs together, to drive between. And to me, that mental decompression is so important, because in vet school, they don't train you on how to go from the new puppy wellness vaccine to the euthanasia, to the hit by car, to the allergic reaction, to the vomiting.
IMHA, yes, like all the everything, right?
No, there's no time and space to just say, like, there's none of that. With Lap of Love, we actually have the time where if you have a really emotional appointment and if you are struggling, you can actually text your practice manager and say, would you mind blocking off my evening appointment? I mean, you can't do it every time within reason, but if you say, look, I just really need a mental health break, they will give it to you, and they will not even ask questions, and they will support you, and they will be kind, and then they will follow up and say, how are you doing?
Yeah.
What company does that? Hello.
I don't know. I don't know of any other one. I don't know. I had a moment like that with my practice manager too. The practice managers are angels, because even though they're not physically with us, like they I think do so much to help us feel supported and navigate our day really well. I had a flat tire one day in Houston, and it was like I woke up to the flat tire in my parking area. So I walked out to my car and one of my tires was just a pancake. And I just remember being like, oh shoot, I have a full day of appointments. What am I going to do here? It's pouring out rain outside and it's, just disgusting, of course. And so I call my practice manager straight away and she's just like, Dr. Leanne, just focus on the tire. I will make sure the families that are on your schedule today that we're going to get them taken care of. And I was just like, that was just a huge burden off my shoulders because I was just like, I am going to be leaving these folks hanging. I didn't know how I was going to best kind of reorientate the schedule. But my practice manager was incredible. And she's just like, I'll take care of this. Just take one step at a time. And it's so nice to have someone like that for you.
And I actually had a friend call me the other day to ask me about Lap of Love. And I said to her, honestly, I don't want to run my own business. I don't want to have to worry about the DEA breathing down my back, having my own medical record software, having to schedule my own and reschedule my own appointments, having to deal with all the things that go into things that I don't have any idea what even goes into it, to be fully honest, because all I know is you have a 3:00 appointment at this address with this size patient. This is what's going on with the patient, and this is what they're doing for aftercare, and this is how they're going to pay. And all I have to do is show up and do my job.
Yeah.
I had to do all the admin stuff. I'd be able to help maybe a third of the amount of families that I can help if I had to do everything else involved to get to that point. So why would I want to do that?
Yeah. Everyone has different goals. I knew for me, I wanted to be able to leave work at work and also to take time off of work whenever, my PTO, like that balance, which is ample. I'm able to take time off when I need to. And like, that's a beautiful thing to be able to fully disconnect and not have to worry about families or patients you're leaving behind because you have your team, right?
We have such an amazing team, whether it's the VCCs, the administration, and to be able, and even like the benefits of the company. So for me, what's really kind of refreshing, you mentioned PTO.
Yeah.
You always have to take PTO every time you need a moment of personal time. And so PTO could stand for like personal time off, paid time off, however you want to look at it. But if I need to go to a medical appointment that's on one of my days on, because that's the only time that clinic has available, or if I need something that, like I have a tire issue and need to go to Honda. If I need to go to Honda, I'm doing it on my day off because it's a whole day, okay? It's not no matter what they say. But if I need to do something, I can either take PTO or I can do makeup days. So what's really nice is they are very good about makeup days. So I have this coming up, I'm going actually to Florida for some family stuff and just have a good time with my family during my birthday week. And I just took a couple of days. So 2 days are PTO, 2 days are makeup days. So then a couple weeks later, I'll put those days on my days off. And that way I don't have to take the PTO because I know I have some weddings and things coming up that I want to use that for.
I have time to go to the gym now because I have a good balance between my work and my time off. And also Lap of Love is paying for it. So I don't have any excuses anymore.
Also encouraging us to take care of ourselves. We have mental health benefits. We have financial health benefits as well. And I particularly love that, like, and even the healthcare. So I have like the lowest tiered plan and it's 100% covered by Lap of Love. So they're not taking a chunk out of my paycheck for health insurance. I'm a very healthy person, so I don't have to have all the bells and whistles, knock on wood. But for some other people, if they have other family members that they need to add on, like there are different plans. So not everyone gets free healthcare, but I pretty much do, which is great. So I very much value the fact that they do put our mental and physical health first. To the point that, like, even things that as logistical as if you have a large patient, they prepare families ahead of time. You will be helping the doctor lift, or we will call it the funeral home to help, because they don't expect us to lift a 120-pound dog by ourselves. They don't expect us to do things that would be an unreasonable ask. I do very much value and appreciate the fact that these families are prepared ahead of time for what to expect, not only financially, but logistically, as far as the aftercare and everything. So again, all I do is I come in and I do my job and I be a doctor, and then I go home and I take care of my animals, and then I do it all over again, and it's fine and it's great. And I don't want to say this is the easiest job I've ever done because I don't want to minimize the work that we do, because it's not easy work. It's very emotionally and mentally sensitive work that we do.
Yeah.
But it's the easiest job I've ever done in a sense of what is being asked of me to give to my families and give to the company. It's not asking me to do 25 back-to-back appointments. It's not asking me to stay out till 2 a.m. writing records. It's saying, here's a record system developed by our own founder who had a background in IT before being a veterinarian. So she knows what we need to make records efficient. So I can voice text on the road and I'm done with my records before I get home, which is it's such a gift to say, all I have to do is kind of tie up some loose odds and ends and not to be spending 8 hours of my day doing paperwork and entering charges and doing all the things. I'm like, I wish I didn't have to do this. So I really love that, like, from not only the benefits of like the healthcare and all that and all the like company benefits, but the actual like logistical benefits of being a lap love doctor supersedes anything I've ever done in my life, for sure. Yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, I agree with you. I loved being able to be done with work when I was done with work. That is the ability to be present where you are. I think society as a whole, we struggle with that a lot. And it's being able to prioritize that is really refreshing and restorative. But anyway, Dr. Jodie, I have so enjoyed chatting with you. And those Charlotte families up there are so blessed to have you as their doctor in the area amongst the rest of your team. I know you guys have such a great crew, but thank you so much for joining me. This was so wonderful.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me again. And sorry about some of the animal disruptions.